there was this article floating around The Verge did that a bunch of other people have talked about that I think I've got a video that should be out on now, some probably, about Steam Deck questions and a possible Steam Deck, a possible Steam Controller 2. Um, the Steam Deck may never be considered a stable console. Don't care about that. Easy to replace battery, band-aid for a noisy fan. Most of this is just nonsense I don't really care about. Valve hopes the Steam Deck will inspire new Steam boxes, but it probably won't build them itself. For the Steam Deck, there were Steam machines. Valve's failed attempt to bring your gaming PC into the living room by offering gaming PC manufacturers a controller and early Linux support. Now, the reason why the Steam machine failed isn't because no, you know what? The entire reason it failed is because Valve did it at the wrong time. The reason why the Steam machine failed is because Proton didn't exist. If you forgot the timeline, the Steam machines came out like 3 years before Proton existed. If you wanted to play, this wasn't long after Steam coming to Linux. So there was basically nothing to play on it besides a couple of indie games and a tiny couple of AAA games. But I think a lot of them were a little bit older as well. That's the reason why it failed. I play all of my games on Linux now, with the exception of a couple of things I play on my PS4. Besides those games, yeah, it just, you can play games on Linux now. You can just play games perfectly fine. If people were to build a Steam machine style system now, it wouldn't actually go that badly. Valve is still working on making the Deck SteamOS available for other manufacturers' PCs, and it hopes they'll carry on the torch once done. I know there is the HoloOS project, which does make the SteamOS usable on other things, but Valve never officially got something released. Yeah, so this is the way you run Steam Deck on things that are not SteamOS on a thing that is not the Steam Deck, because Valve still hasn't made it a general OS, even though they're going to do so a year ago or something. Once it's widely available, not only are we excited to see other manufacturers making their own handheld PC gaming devices, we're excited to see people make their own SteamOS machines, which could include small PCs they put next to their TV, says Yang. If you're not using a Steam Deck, should you use SteamOS? Is there anything SteamOS offers that makes sense on a non-Steam Deck system? I don't really know, to be honest. I don't really think there is. If you installed, because all SteamOS really is it's a immutable version of Arch Linux. But if you wanted to game on something Fedora Silverblue, for example, your experience would be basically the same for a desktop system, or using a non immutable distro like a Pop OS or something like that. I'm sure would other manufacturers use it? That's the question. Because if, for just you running it by yourself, you can just go and use it. But if someone was selling a device, I don't know if Valve would end up charging licensing fees to call it SteamOS. I'm not sure how that would go down. I've not looked into their contracts or anything like that. We're doing our own experiments, but also I love to work with third parties to see what they would bring to the table as well. Yang adds, the Steam Deck dock might already be the missing link for those seeking a living room game console, and he points out the work that Valve put into UI scale. I actually no, that's fair. That's fair. What's the compositor? GameScope? Is that what I think that's the compositor they use on SteamOS. GameScope. Is it? Yeah. Okay, I was right. GameScope. This is the compositor they use. This might actually be the one benefit you get running SteamOS on a regular system. However, you don't need to use SteamOS to have GameScope. So yeah. Like it's just GameScope is just in the standard Is it standard repos? Yeah, the standard repos on Arch Linux. So that's not really the thing that matters. I can't think of any other reason why you'd want to do that. But here's another thing. So it's been known for a while that a second generation Steam Deck is probably going to exist. There's not been like public sales numbers on how how the current Steam Deck has done so far, but there's estimations in the range of over 1 million units, which definitely doesn't make it one of the best-selling consoles of all time, but also doesn't make it a flat-out failure. Home console. Also, there's been nothing confirmed. So this is best-selling game consoles, including handhelds. So if it has sold 1 million-ish units, like it's very low down the list, it would be above the Atari Lynx, which, isn't great, but for a first-generation system, is not the worst. It could be worse. And also, that's only if the numbers are accurate, and also the Steam Deck has not... It's not got worldwide sales, and it's not got sales with, as like just general buy. So that number does really have to be taken with a giant grain of salt, even if it is accurate. Like, you can't judge small market sales based against entire world sales and say, hey, look, it didn't sell that well. And it's just like, well, yeah, but it's also... it wasn't being sold in Asia yet, for example, which Asia is a giant handheld market, so I expect it to do pretty well there. I would like it in Australia as well. Please fucking sell it in Australia, Val. Let me give you money. Because I don't want to import it from America or whatever. I could go and do that. I've actually had people offer to they've got a Steam Deck, or if I buy one, they'd be willing to send it to me. But I'm more than happy to wait. I just don't want to have to wait. I want to be able to just buy one. But the thing I was getting to here, people have asked, they know a second generation Steam Deck's coming. The question is whether a Steam Deck Pro, a Steam Deck Plus, or whatever you might want to call it, not a full generational hop, but you take what the Steam Deck is, and then maybe give it a slightly better CPU, maybe give it a slightly better screen, better sticks, or something like that. They've said, at least this specific engineer, Pierre-Loup Griffiths, who is one of the core guys in the Steam Deck team, has said they don't want to do a Pro. Right now, the fact that all Steam Decks can play the same games and that we have one target for users to understand what performance level to expect when you're playing, and for developers to understand what to target, there's a lot of value in having that one spec. I think we'll opt to keep the one performance level for a little bit longer, and only look at changing the performance level when there is a significant gain to be had, which I think is probably the best way to deal with it. One of the nice things about, gaming on a console, at least prior to the PS4 generation, was you bought a console and you knew that everything you played on that console would perform in a certain way. Like there's no guesswork there. If it's on the console and the game's not made by an idiot, it's going to perform in a certain way. Then when the PS4 generation came out, you had the PS4, the PS4 Pro. And that wasn't just like, there's always been the slim editions of consoles. I don't know when the first time that happened was. I don't know if there was a slim PS1. It might have been the PS2 generation that started with. I don't know if it happened on the Xbox side either. I don't think so. Because there was the big fat PS2 and the PS2 Slim. I had the PS2 Slim. But that's not a fundamental performance change, assuming that they didn't break the cooling, which, wasn't a guarantee. Assuming that, like, the heart, like, the core CPU, GPU, all that fun stuff, like, that's the same. It's just changing the form factor it's in, because we can manufacture it better, we can redesign it to fit in a smaller box. That's pretty much always happened. But it wasn't until the PS4 generation where you really got, like, basically 2 generations in one. Like, the PS4 and the PS4 Pro are completely separate systems. Like, there are some games where on the PS4 they do 30 FPS, PS4 Pro they do 60 FPS. That is a night and day difference. Like, that goes from barely playable to functionally playable.